Good afternoon, everyone. We are so excited to be here at Miami Community News celebrating Women in Construction Week. I am delighted to be here representing the National Association of Women in Construction. And with me today, I have Kim and Kelly. So let's get the conversation started as we celebrate women in construction for the National Association of Women in Construction Miami, Chapter 41. Ladies, how are you today? Kim, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Kim Paez, and I'm a project manager at Thornton Construction Company. And I'm also the current president for the Miami chapter of NAWIC. And I have a bachelor's degree in architecture and a master's degree in construction management. I started my career in 2011 with Thornton Construction, and I've been there ever since.
Thank you. What about you, Kelly?
Hi, Kelly Valle. I'm a project manager with KAST Construction. I've been in the construction industry now almost about 9 years, and I started with Balfour Beatty Construction, and I've now with KAST Construction working on a multifamily project in Hialeah called Pura Vida.
Awesome. We're making such great strides. And one of the things that we like to bring the attention to during WIC Week is the fact that NAWIC has been around over 60 years. And it was started simply because it was a group of women in the construction industry that felt they did not have a voice or have a place where they can go and speak the lingo of their industry. So, of course, they got together and they formed NAWIC. And the Miami chapter alone is over 6 years old. And we have been growing rapidly, and we see women in construction more so in, for example, in FIU, the numbers are growing, same thing. So now that we have chapters in both FIU and NAWIC, we're going to continue to grow the potential of our women as we continue to empower them. So, as we get into this conversation, one of the things that I would like to know, and I would like you to share with our viewers, is what got you into construction in the first place?
All right. So when I was little, I've always loved to play with Legos. That was like my thing. I had a big bucket and I would build things on my own. And my family had a model company. So I would help them every so often build these models for these huge buildings that we have in downtown and all across the United States. And that kind of piqued my interest in the construction industry, or in architecture at least. When I went to school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I started as engineering. I transferred to some other random majors, and I kind of circled back to architecture just because of my background. I liked the ability to see 2D things turn into 3D, and that has always been, I guess, a part of me. So yeah, after my bachelor's degree, I realized that I didn't necessarily want to be an architect, and I found someone that had been going to school for construction management. I was like, man, that sounds interesting. I think I'd like to try that. So that's when I got into my master's program, and the rest is history.
Well, it's amazing because you understand now both worlds, right? The design aspect of it and the actual hands-on construction. So that's fantastic. What about you, Kelly? What made you go into construction?
So, growing up, my dad worked for Florida Lumber, so they're like a vendor of materials in South Florida, kind of a big vendor actually. And he worked in the rebar department, and he was doing all the rebar sales for all the big projects going on in South Florida. And on the weekends, he would always drive around and tell me, I'm supplying the rebar on this project, that project. And he would always point out all the different projects he was supplying rebar on. And I remember telling him when I was little, I was like, one day I'm going to build one of those projects and you'll be supplying my project. And so that kind of just grew the interest in construction. I didn't really understand like how I would be in construction, so I kind of went down the architecture route. In high school, I went to a vocational school where I learned drafting, and I was doing details and small plans most of high school. And then when it was time to go to college, I applied to the University of Florida for architecture. I go to Preview, and I go to the architecture preview. They're talking about architecture program. And I'll never forget, like, one of the professors saying that the first assignment was like, you have to describe your life in a cube. And I was like, that's so weird. Like, that's like, how is that going to help me? And then the construction program came, and they started talking about like what their program's about. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. I want to build. Like, that's exactly what I was like, I wanted to do. I just didn't understand like that was even a degree or how to get into that. So that's when I chose construction. And Then I graduated from the University of Florida, went to FIU, where I got my master's in construction. I actually met Lucia when I was at FIU. I was the president for the NAWIC student chapter at FIU, and
Well,
and then ever since then, I got recruited at FIU by a construction company,
and here you are today.
Here I am today. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. You both mentioned that although you were exposed to construction growing up because of the family business, it doesn't seem that you were really introduced to proper construction classes and so forth, not until you were maybe, in college, which is one of the reasons why NAWIC is so proactive in introducing construction as a viable career path through our building block competition that we just recently held. We want students, both boys and girls, to understand that within the construction industry, there's so many possible careers. So based on that comment, I want to ask, obviously, when you stepped into the construction industry, you did not start as a project manager. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the different kinds of jobs and experiences you've had in construction before your current position?
So when I started with Thornton, I was a project coordinator. I was in my last semester of school, so I was still taking classes and working at the same time. And after that, I transitioned to assistant project manager. But through those two positions, I was kind of exposed to a lot of different divisions or departments within Thornton. So I helped out the estimating team. I helped out with business development. I helped out with contracts and certificates of insurance. I've helped with all of the different programs and systems that we have. And eventually I kind of gravitated towards the project management side, which was something that I really liked over the other departments that I held positions in.
Thank you. What about you, Kelly?
I started as an intern at Balfour Beatty. I was actually it was my second semester of the master's program, and all my classes were in the evening, so I was going full-time school at night and then full-time work during the day. And I was an intern on the Hialeah Miami-Dade campus project, and I was there for about 2 years, just kind of helping out with anything that they needed me to do. Some days I was helping out a superintendent doing layout. Other days I was helping with daily reports and just inputting that into the computer and running man-hour reports for the monthly report for the project manager. And I learned a lot there because luckily I didn't really have a lot of responsibility. So there was a lot of time for me to just learn and kind of shadow everyone on the job site and just ask questions from everyone. At the time I would go walk around the job site with our safety manager to just learn about safety, and sit with the APM and look at change orders and the PM and kind of see what he was doing leading up to the owner meetings. And from there, when I was at that project, I also graduated. So when I graduated from FIU, I got a full-time job offer, and I started as a project engineer, and I went on to build the FIU Student Academic Success Center, which is like the welcome center for FIU. So it was really nice to graduate from FIU and then be able to go back to the institution that you just graduated from and give back and build one of their main buildings. And there, I was a project engineer there, built a couple other projects, and became an assistant project manager when I was on a very large retail project called River Landing. And from there, the pandemic hit, unfortunately. So, it was kind of scary time to be laid off during the pandemic. And I was very lucky, and I got hired by the Related Group, and I built a project with them, their owner builder. So it was a very different experience because as a GC, there's a lot of things that the owner handles. So you're just like, the owner's got it. But I was the owner and the builder. So I learned a lot about everything that happens leading up to the project, because it was also our responsibility. But after being there for a while, I wanted to go back to GC and just the conventional, general contractor setup. So that's how I ended up at KAST. And I've been at KAST now a couple of months.
So it seems that from your experience, I mean, you touched upon a variety of opportunities. You talked
Yeah.
about layout, which is surveying. You talked about document control. You talked about
Yeah.
safety. Just briefly in your brief, introduction to what your experience has been. So again, I want to point out that people who have not thought or considered the construction industry, there's just from A to Z opportunities in what you want to do, and skill set, of course, plays into that. You also touched a little bit about giving back, and I want to get back to that later on in the conversation. But based on your current experiences and what you've had, some people have a preference for a field, and some people have a preference to stay in the office. What's your preference?
I like being a hybrid between the office and the field. I think that when you're out in the field, you're able to understand what's going on with your project better, and you're able to come up with solutions as a team better because you have your superintendent out there and maybe your assistant project manager is out there as well. So the owners are also more involved depending on the project, of course. I'm currently working in 2 hospitals and they're both occupied spaces. So the owners are always there walking around, and it's great to be able to collaborate with them on the field. On the office side, sometimes you need, some quiet time to be able to deal with some other things. So it's nice to be able to have the ability to work both on the field and in the office.
Seems like hybrid is the way most people are going nowadays
Yeah.
in general. Kelly, what
Yeah.
about you?
I would agree. I think I like, well, as a project manager, we are in the field, so we're technically considered field, but we're also in an office in the field, and oftentimes we don't get to make it out and walk the project as much as we'd like. But I definitely love being in the field in the capacity that I am as a project manager. I've had times between projects where I get sent to the main office, and that's like, you're really in the office. And I really, that, as important as the time is when you're in the main office, because you're probably doing pre-construction for a project that's coming up, like very important time and like very important things that you're doing to set up your project. Like, I always prefer being in the field than being in the main office. It's just like, I guess I kind of like the commotion of all the activity in the field, and it's like every day is something different. You just don't know what someone can walk in through the door and that's it. Like whatever you had planned out for the day is going to be different. And I think I kind of like that. It's, you have structure, but there's also that, like, there's some sort of excitement to it being in the field.
Absolutely. There's a lot of dynamics, right,
Yeah.
that can happen every day. Like you said, you have this wonderful day plan and somebody walks in your door and then that's it,
Yeah.
or you have a safety concern that you have to address. So I can certainly understand that. We talked about skill set a little bit, and I would like to know from you what traits you think are imperative to be successful in this industry.
I think organization is super key. If you can keep your documents organized, I think that would go a long way, especially when the project is over and you need to go back and kind of find some activities that happened during a certain time period, or any information that had to do with submittals. Maybe it's a warranty issue. So for me, organization is super, super key. Another one is adaptability. You got to be able to roll with the punches. Like you were saying, people can walk in at any time and you have to stop what you're doing and be able to move on to something else. So that's a day-to-day for everyone, I think. We're firefighters, essentially.
Yeah. Definitely. Kelly, what about you?
I think for me, the 2 big things are, you need to be detailed. I always tell, especially like the younger, I say I'm young, but even younger than me, like people coming out of school, and you give them a task and they're done. And they're like, what do I do next? I don't have anything to do. And it's like, open up the plans. Every time you open those plans, I promise you're going to see something. You're going to find a note that's like microscopic in the corner of a sheet that you haven't seen before. And you have to be detailed. Like, your homework on a job is never done, because you can just review drawings all day and you will always find something different that you didn't see before. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, the cause effect. Like, did I think about like, what do I need to do before that goes into place? So being detailed is very important. It's like in just reviewing plans, reviewing your submittals, and just reviewing drawings. Like, I always tell everyone, we're out there to find as many problems as possible ahead of time. You're going to catch, let's say you find 90% of the problems when you're doing shop drawings and submittals, then that saves you so many headaches in the future when you're building and you realize, oh my God, I missed that note that says I have to do XYZ. And now it's an issue where the material's on site and maybe it's the wrong size or it's the wrong model. So being detailed is key. And then the second one is just being a problem solver. The one thing that I've learned in construction, there isn't any manual, there isn't any way, like there aren't any set rules on how to fix a problem. And you need to find that initiative. Like, I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to call whoever I need to call. I'm going to talk to everybody I need to talk to and strategize on how to problem solve. And like, if you can't do that, like, I feel like you're going to really struggle in our industry because, I mean, if I give you a task and you tell me I came up to this roadblock, what do I do next? And it's like, I don't know how to solve it either. I'm just going to start calling and figure out until I find an answer that I need. And I think that's like the key, like for anyone coming into the construction industry, being detailed and being a problem solver.
Kelly, let me stay with you because being a problem solver, you mentioned calling out to people. So for me, I think communication is key,
Yes,
right? So
absolutely.
communication for me is one of the most imperative traits that someone can have is effective communication. And I always say to people, it doesn't matter if it's good, bad, or ugly, we have to talk and we have to figure things out. So, when you're out there building these wonderful projects, you're not building alone. So I would like you guys to address communication and teamwork because you have so many people out there that you're collaborating, cooperating with to get this done in a timely manner. Because as we all know, schedule is the most important thing.
Yeah.
We must meet those milestones. So let's stick a little bit with traits and talk to me about how you work with your team in terms of building up effective communication and teamwork.
Communication, it is like so important. And you also like just have to understand people and how to communicate with them. Like maybe I communicate with you in a more direct manner, but maybe that way that I communicate with you won't work with you. And it's just like understanding like personalities and how to communicate with people. I know when I was first starting, I just had like one way to talk to everybody, and it kind of came off very aggressive, and some people just didn't want to talk to me because they were turned off by the way that I was talking to them, especially being a woman and being young. I go up to a man that's could be my dad or my grandpa and I start yelling at him, I'm probably not going to get a good reaction from him. So, it's knowing how to communicate with people. And like, I try not to take that very overly aggressive approach with people. I always like, okay, this is the problem. What are we going to do to solve it? And, these are the facts. You did this wrong. Now you need to fix it. Or, it's just like case by case with every individual that you bump into on the job site, because there's just so many personalities. Even with like the team itself, I had an incident when I first started working where it was me and a project engineer. We were both project engineers, and I guess my method of communicating didn't work with him. He just felt that I was being too bossy to him. So it was like, okay, like I got to tailor the way I talk to him because we need to work together. And I need you and you need me because our trades overlap. Everything in construction touches each other. So if we can't communicate, the project's not going to move forward. So sometimes, you got to kind of suck it up, and it's like, how are we going to work together?
Yeah. What about you, Kim?
For me, I agree with everything you said. Yeah, everyone has a different personality. And I also had to learn that not everyone communicates the same way. So I also, when I first started, had a particular way of speaking to people, and sometimes that didn't, go well. So I also had to learn to adapt to that and realize that everyone has a different personality. And collaboration for us is huge. So, even in our scopes of work, we include to the subcontractors or trade partners that we have, we must be able to collaborate with each other, trade partner with Thornton, but also trade partner with trade partner, to be able to all get on the same page for our project. Because at the end of the day, we're all providing the same service. So we all need to be on the same page to be able to deliver the correct product to the owner. Aside from that, internally, we try to keep the best communication as possible. My team, we created for each of my projects, we have separate WhatsApp chats. And anytime we have any issues, we're always talking in that chat. Like, hey, do you need this? Hey, I need this. So we help each other wherever we can, even if it's something that may not be part of my job description, quote unquote. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is that we need to get done, we help each other and we get it done as a team. 'Cause that's what-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're able to roll back those sleeves, put on that different hat, and just take action and make it happen, that's definitely part of collaboration and teamwork. And, Kelly, you brought up the gender question, right? And this week, as we celebrate WIC Week, the theme of the week is Envision Equity, right? And it's a very trendy word, equity and diversity and so forth. So the question is going to be, has your gender affected your career in construction in any way?
So, I would say that it hasn't. I mean, obviously, there have been times where I have bumped into individuals where I know that if I were a man, they wouldn't be reacting the way they are to whatever message I'm delivering to them. But I've been very lucky with construction and all the mentors I've had everywhere I've gone, and I felt that it's never affected me. And I'm not going to lie that when I got laid off last year during the pandemic and I was 12 weeks pregnant, I thought like my career was over. I literally panicked, and I was convinced that I was not going to find work because who's going to hire a pregnant woman to work on a construction site? So I was in such a rush to get a job before I really started showing that I was pregnant, because I said if I could get my foot in the door and show them what I can do, then there'll be no question about, oh, she's pregnant kind of thing. And I still remember very vividly. I was at Related. I had gotten recruited through a recruiter. I didn't really tell the recruiter that I was pregnant until I'd already had the job offer. And then I told him, hey, I'm pregnant. Should I tell him? And he's like, he didn't even know. No one knew what to do when I told them. They freaked out. He's like, don't say anything. Just take the job and go and do your best and show them what you're all about. And then address that you're pregnant once you're there. So that's exactly what I did. And I'll never forget that day that I told my supervisor. I was so scared to tell him because I had no idea how he'd react. And I'd actually gotten hired there as an assistant project manager, and I took the job because no one was hiring, even though I knew I was a project manager. And maybe 3 weeks into the job, I got promoted to project manager. They're like, you're clearly a project manager. And they wanted me to take over the job that I was hired to assist. So they reassigned that project manager another job, and I took over that job as a lead project manager. So I felt like, okay, now I need to tell you that I'm pregnant. And so I told the vice president of construction, hey, I just want you to know I'm pregnant. And I was so scared of what reaction he would have. And he looked at me and he's like, this doesn't change anything.
That's
and
awesome.
I'll never forget that day. He literally said, this doesn't change anything. And if anything, I know it's just going to make you harder work.
That's an amazing
It is so
story.
true. And I'll never forget that. And I'm so grateful. I get very emotional about it because it was possibly the scariest thing I've ever done. But then on the flip side, I feel like he forgot that I was pregnant. He could see that I was pregnant and getting bigger. And I remember one day he's like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I just want to check in. Are you okay?
Oh,
I know you're pregnant, but are you okay? And I'm like, you can ask. I'm clearly growing. I'm okay. And when I was going to deliver, it was kind of unexpected. I went to the doctor. I was getting ready to have OAC, and I was dressed to go to work, and had to call the vice president and tell him, hey, I'm actually not making it to the meeting. I'm having the baby today. And I'll never forget. He's like, everything's okay. Everything's okay. We're going to be okay. And I'm like, I think he was more freaked out that I was having a baby at that moment than I was. But it was okay. And I had my baby, and they had someone step in and take over the job for a couple of weeks. And then I came on. They were very flexible. They let me work from home a couple of weeks and just kind of transition slowly into the job again.
That's excellent. I know that time is coming close to an end. So I do really want to ask this question because I think you both have mentioned mentors and giving back. And, from a personal perspective, it's very important for me to give back to the community and the people that have helped me along the way. So as we get closer to wrapping today's conversation up, I'd like to ask, how are you involved in your community and giving back? Kim, let's start with you.
So community service is one of our core values at Thornton. So we take that very seriously. And it's not just about participating in maybe Habitat for Humanity, which we do, and other philanthropic things, but it's also dealing with the community around the project that you're currently working on. So the things that we do at Thornton, building a school, that affects the community. Renovating a hospital, that also affects the community. When things are occupied, it affects the people that are inside of the occupied space and also the neighbors around it. So we, not only give back in the sense of philanthropic wise, but also we try to maintain good job sites, clean and respectful, and things like that. So we take it kind of both ways. Personally, we just did a Habitat for Humanity thing, and I thought it was amazing. We were able to help a family build a house. I mean, we were there for only one day, but the person that purchased the house was actually there, and we were able to work with her, and she was working alongside us. So that was that was touching. That was really nice to see. So we do construction every day, but we don't get to see it on the other side and how it really affects the person that you're helping. So that was nice.
And you are giving back by serving as the president of the Miami chapter for the last 2 years and being involved in all the activities that we put together. So it's very important. It's a great big round circle. It comes right back to you. Kelly, what about you?
So my involvement, I'm involved with the Industry Advisory Council at FIU. So, I like to give back by being involved on that council and being able to go back into a classroom and doing any guest speaker guest speaker talks whenever I get a chance. And the big one for me every year is also going back to my high school and doing guest speaker there. And at the end of the year, they do capstone interviews where they interview all the seniors, and it's kind of like a mock job interview. And it's important to me because I want a high school student to see me, and I tell them, I was in your shoes. I went to this school. I know what you're going through, and see me and see that if I was able to do it, I know you can too, and provide, and I always give them my number, call me, email me, because I want them to see that they can do it too, and that there are a lot of opportunities in construction for women.
Absolutely. As we come to a close, if someone were interested and had never stepped foot in the construction industry, what advice would you give that person if they're considering the construction industry? What would be your words of wisdom?
Be open to anything. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to maybe be vulnerable. Don't get into your own head, because I think a lot of times we kind of stop ourselves from maybe progressing because we think we're not good enough for whatever reason, or we can't get there, we can't do this. I think that we need to take a risk and just put ourselves out there, and everything will work out.
What about you, Kelly?
To be confident. I think confidence, if you're confident in what you're doing and you can do it well, it's so important. And if you walk into a room full of guys and you're confident and they see that you're confident in what you're doing, you'll command the respect. And that is so important, just like having that presence in a room.
So this week we had the opportunity earlier in the week to visit with the ladies of the 395 project with Archer Western. And we had about 20 ladies in the room, and we were having similar conversations because they come from all kinds of backgrounds. Some of them are civil engineers. Some of them just stepped into the construction industry because they needed a job. Some of them have been with this company for, 10 years, so others 2 years. But at the end of the day, we're sharing all these leadership experiences within the industry. And my 2 cents is always find your voice. And that example that you gave of walking in with confidence, I always tell ladies who are new to the industry, don't sit in the back of the room when you go to a pre-construction meeting or when you go to a subcontractor's meeting. Go to the front of the room. You earn trust and you earn respect by the way you carry yourself and by the way you listen and the questions you ask. If you become a wallflower, that's all you'll ever be. But if you step out of that position, you will be able to grow tremendously, because we know that within this industry, not only can you start at the very, very bottom or be a tradesperson or be a laborer, but you can eventually own your own company. And it's one of the most beautiful things this industry can offer. And talking and closing as to what are the current needs of the industry, we all know and understand that workforce is diminishing. And it's diminishing for different reasons. One of them being that all the baby boomers are retiring, and we really need to promote and continue to show students that even if they cannot or do not want to go to college, that vocational training and training in the different trades, it's such an important aspect for them to have, because they will be financially independent. So our local colleges and universities have tons of programs, and I think the three of us would be more than happy to share our knowledge of what is available. Some of the programming is free, some of the programming is not, but the programming is there for you to step into the waters of construction and see if it's for you. So today, I thank you so much for this first segment being here. Kim, for your service as our president of the Miami chapter, for everything that you do on behalf of Thornton and your community. Kelly, same thing. I share with you on the Industry Advisory Council of FIU, and I thank you for your time today and wish you continued success in your careers in the construction industry. So thank you so much, and continue to celebrate Women in Construction Week.
Thank you for having us.